This is not a normal FBI hearing. This is a federal agency allegedly tearing itself apart in real time. And every time Kash Patel faces pressure in the media, someone inside the Bureau gets fired. 4 separate incidents. Same pattern, same timing, same accusations. From leaked jet trips to internal purges to elite counterintelligence agents being removed right after headlines drop, FBI veterans are now saying this is no coincidence anymore. And when Congress finally pressed for answers, Patel didn't clarify anything. He pushed back, he denied the framing, and the moment the questions got specific, everything escalated.
And weakened the Bureau. And most recently, Kash Patel's trip to the Olympics in Italy, again aboard a government jet. We're seen here, he guzzled beer and sprayed it all over everyone in the room while partying with the USA men's hockey team. I want to bring in Carol Lennox, who's reporting. We've been reading from. Also joining us, former Assistant Special Agent in Charge at the FBI and National Security Intelligence Analyst for us, Michael Feinberg. Carol Lennox, take us through this really wider look at a pattern that's become clear.
Thanks, Nicole, for focusing on this. You know, as you know from covering this yourself in a way, and tracking what's been going on at the Justice Department and the FBI, we can sometimes become a little bit numb to these serial purges. There have been story after story that we've broken here at MS Now, or that some of our colleagues and competitors have broken, about FBI agents and staff being fired by Kash Patel since he took office in February of 2025 as the director. But what we started to look into was the seemingly eerie coincidence or coordination, depending on your perspective, between moments when Kash Patel is personally in hot water and moments when these FBI agents are having their careers ended unceremoniously, often without any cause or justification given to them about why they're being fired. I would like to emphasize that there are people at the FBI, we learned in the course of this reporting, who have also noticed this trend, but we tried in our reporting to focus on these 4 instances that had this eerie overlap. Kash Patel, through a spokesperson, told MS Now, told me and Ken that firings are based on investigations and findings of impropriety and nothing more. I just think it's important to say what they say is happening.
Let me go through them again. And I love that we can, especially with Michael here, look at this. I think of it as like a crater that they've created at the FBI. And without putting them together, it's hard to understand just how deep it is. And I guess what I want to ask you to talk about on the other side is, I mean, he's perpetually in trouble. And so I want to know from both of you where the bottom might be of that crater. But let me just go through the examples again. In mid-September, Kash Patel faced a string of...
What we are seeing here is not just another political hearing. It is a direct confrontation that has exposed a deeper crisis inside the FBI. Because according to multiple FBI veterans and insider reports, what is happening under Director Kash Patel is not random. It is becoming a pattern that, insiders claim, is directly tied to moments when Patel himself comes under public pressure. And during this heated exchange, that tension becomes impossible to ignore. As FBI veterans began laying out their concerns, they pointed to a series of decisions that they say raise serious questions about leadership inside the Bureau. According to reporting cited during this discussion, FBI staff and agents have been tracking what they describe as a consistent cycle, moments where negative headlines or criticism about Patel are followed almost immediately by internal firings, not months later. Not after investigation, but within days, sometimes hours. And that is exactly what is raising alarm inside the Bureau. Former agents and national security analysts point to several major incidents that they say define this pattern. Reports alleging misuse of government resources, including FBI aircraft for personal travel. reports questioning leadership competence and decision-making at the highest level, and most recently, claims tied to a controversial overseas trip where Patel was seen in highly publicized and widely criticized circumstances. Each of these stories, according to sources familiar with internal FBI discussions, is followed by swift internal action, not always explained and not always publicly justified. Inside the exchange, FBI veterans argued that this is not just a coincidence anymore. They described it as something much more structural, a leadership environment where internal stability is being repeatedly disrupted during moments of external pressure. And as the questioning continued, they laid out a timeline that they say reflects this pattern clearly. In each case, after a major critical report or headline emerges, there is a rapid response inside the Bureau involving firings or removals of experienced personnel, including agents with expertise in counterintelligence, national security, and foreign threat monitoring. These are not junior roles. These are not administrative reshuffles. These are experienced operatives with years of institutional knowledge. And that is where the concern becomes even more serious. Because according to multiple FBI sources cited in the discussion, some of these personnel were directly involved in sensitive national security investigations, including counterterrorism and foreign intelligence monitoring. Now critics argue this raises a fundamental question. Are these decisions based purely on internal investigations as officially stated, or is there a deeper reaction pattern tied to political and media pressure? The official response remains the same, that all firings are based on internal reviews, findings of misconduct, and standard disciplinary procedures. But inside the Bureau, according to veteran voices, that explanation is not settling the growing concern, because what they describe instead is a repeated sequence: controversy, media pressure, and then sudden internal shakeups that remove experienced personnel from key positions. And that is why this moment inside the hearing carried so much weight. It wasn't just about one decision or one headline. It was about whether the structure of one of America's most important law enforcement agencies is being shaped by reaction rather than process. Supporters of Patel argue these changes are necessary reforms, long overdue corrections inside a powerful agency that needed accountability. But critics inside the FBI warn that the loss of experienced agents, especially in areas like counterintelligence and global threat tracking, could weaken operational readiness at a critical time. And that is the tension sitting at the center of this entire controversy. Because if even part of what these FBI veterans are saying is accurate, then this is not just a political dispute. It becomes a question about institutional stability, national security readiness, and whether leadership decisions are being made in a way that strengthens or destabilizes the Bureau. And as the exchange ended, one thing was clear: this story is not going away. More whistleblowers are speaking, more reports are emerging, and more questions are being raised about what is happening behind closed doors at the FBI. And until those questions are answered clearly, the pressure on leadership is only going to grow.